Here's a general rule that I think is a good one. If you have somebody who's protesting or wants some kind of change, and you've got other people who seem to be the ones who are in the way, if one of those sides says, let's work together, I'll do some things differently, maybe you'll do some things differently, I acknowledge that the problem might not be me. I mean, I might not have caused the problem we're trying to fix, and maybe you didn't cause the problem we're trying to fix. But if you're not approaching this from the perspective of both of us need to do something differently, you are not really a credible player. There was a sign I saw at a protest at Yorba Linda. So it looked like there were some protesters and some counter-protesters. And one of the signs held up by, it looked like a white counter-protester to BLM, said, "Black behavior matters." So the response to Black Lives Matter from this counter-protester was, "Black behavior matters." Pretty offensive, isn't it? It is. It's offensive. Now, of course, he made it to be provocative, so you can't, again, that was a feature, not a bug. This is somebody who's trying to get your blood boiling, and it worked. I would say that strikes me as offensive, even though I agree with the thought. The thought I agree with completely, that people have to take responsibility for themselves, even if somebody else caused the problem. So I agree with the thought. But here's how I would have said it better. Instead of saying black behavior matters, I would have said black strategy matters. In fact, if somebody asked me if Black Lives Matter, here's one way I might answer. If somebody said, "Scott, say it, do Black Lives Matter?" I'm not going to be the jerk that says no. I'm not going to say, the first thing out of my mouth is not going to be all lives matter, because I'm not an idiot. Why would I cause trouble that doesn't need to be caused? Here's how I might handle it. Absolutely, Black Lives Matter. Super, super true. Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. I might even put up my fist and scream it. And then I would say, would you agree that black strategy matters? In other words, that if you have a good strategy, you'll probably get a good outcome. If you have a bad strategy, you might have a bad outcome. Would you agree with that? Because that's my problem. My problem is not Black Lives Matter, because of course they do. Duh. My problem is your strategy sucks. If you use a strategy that is guaranteed to get you the wrong answer, don't blame me when you get the wrong answer. Don't put it on me when you're doing an objectively, obviously, clearly bad strategy. That's not on me. You got to take that on yourself. Here's a general rule that I think is a good one. If you have somebody who's protesting or wants some kind of change, and you've got other people who seem to be the ones who are in the way, if one of those sides says, let's work together, I'll do some things differently, maybe you'll do some things differently, I acknowledge that the problem might not be me. I mean, I might not have caused the problem we're trying to fix, and maybe you didn't cause the problem we're trying to fix. But if you're not approaching this from the perspective of both of us need to do something differently, you are not really a credible player. If somebody comes to you and says, only you need to change, you'll never get there. You can never get there if your starting assumption is that one side needs to change, even if all the problems are on the other side. The problem, the group that maybe doesn't think it's their fault still needs to say, you know, I don't think we did anything wrong. But if you're willing to change, I want to do whatever I can to make it easy for you to change. In other words, I'll do something different. Even though it's not my fault, it might not even be my responsibility. But if you want to be productive, both sides every time have to say, I'm going to do something different. You need to do something different too, but we have to start with that assumption. As soon as you say, you need to do something different and I don't, that's the end of the story. You can just walk away. Stop. I I want to tell you a story about that, but I can't for privacy reasons. But I have been in that situation, shall I say, in the past, where it was expected that I would only change and the other person would not. And that can never work. All divorced men have been there, buddy. All right, I guess you knew what I was talking about, didn't you? I didn't disguise that well at all, did I? I'm going to tell you the story. All right, I'm going to hope that my ex-wife will be okay with this, because I don't want to do anything that's too personal here. But toward the end of my marriage, we did what married people do if they're having trouble. We went to a counselor. And I wanted to make sure that I got the best outcome from a marriage counselor, so I said, you pick the marriage counselor. So this will be my deal. In order for me to feel like you got the best shot, I want you alone to decide who the marriage counselor is. Because I was so confident that my point of view would be well represented no matter who the marriage counselor was. It really didn't matter who it was. So my ex-wife picked a woman as the marriage counselor, in which I said, all right, this is perfect. Because if a woman agrees with anything I say, it's going to carry a little more weight, I think, with my ex-wife. So I thought, this is perfect. You picked a marriage counselor, and it's a woman. This is ideal, because I'm pretty persuasive, right? Have you ever met me? I'm kind of persuasive. So I thought, this is a perfect setup. I could not have asked for a better situation. I think it was on probably day one when the marriage counselor told me this was the rule, that I had to change, but my ex-wife did not need to change in any way whatsoever. How do you think it turned out? I argued like a wounded dog. I argued, okay, we got to change that. All right, we can't even talk about any details about what any issues are. We have to change that assumption, because if we go into it with the assumption that I'm the only one who needs to change in any way, they can't possibly have a good outcome. And she could not be persuaded away from that. She never changed her opinion that independent of what the actual issues were, I was the only one who needed to change. Now, I never really even understood it. I never understood it. I didn't understand why that wasn't obviously the worst advice anybody ever got anywhere in the history of advice.